Hey everybody, it's Paul from Alexandria Knife Sharpening, and what I wanted to show you today real quick is a quick tip, something I like to do for my customers. This is something I just do. I don't charge extra for it. I include it in my pricing. I've talked about my pricing before, but I do a flat fee. I do charge a little bit more than probably most of your people that you're going to see at farmers markets and things like that. They generally are in the neighborhood of like $5 a blade. I charge $10 a blade, but I also polish and take out scratches from people's knives. And so I just want to give you a quick shot of what I use to do that, because there's lots of ways to do it. Some people like using Scotch Brite. I actually use something that I'm not sure how many people do this, but this is what I do. I use 3M and also a company called Dedeco dental abrasives, or Radial Disk abrasives. You'll also see them called. And they're these little rubber discs that have abrasives built into them. The nice thing about it is because it's like a little fan, they tend to not overheat the knife. They come in grits from 80 all the way up to 2500. They most of them are good to up to around 30,000 RPMs on, and you can get all different kinds of them. So this one here you can see is a big one. So this is a what's known as a 6-ply. So it actually has 6 layers of those little abrasive discs, and I will tell you this, just so you know up front, they are not inexpensive, but they last a really long time. So yeah, they cost a lot. You know, this set of 6 right here, just the abrasives, not even including the little mandrels that I had to get for them, run about $70 for these. And now the smaller ones, you can find these pretty cheap. Now if you go to Dedeco, they are more expensive, but I have also used Chinese brand ones that I get off of Amazon, and they work just fine. They're a little bit stiffer, but sometimes that's good. It actually can be a plus, and they do a really nice job. So let me just show you kind of like what they do and kind of give you some ideas if you use one of these. Now if you have a really big scratch to take out, and some of it depends on the knife and the knife's scratch pattern. So a mirrored knife, you're going to be way up in the 2500 range, or on these big discs they actually they go 6 micron and what they call a 1 micron, and this is the finest one. This is a 1 micron, and this is a 6 micron. On the little discs, they have this is a 2500. They're usually white. This is a 2500. 1000's usually a bright green, and you'll kind of learn the colors pretty fast. Now, I find for certain knives, cleaning them up, there's a couple numbers that are very, very helpful. So if you're working on like a Wusthof or a Henkel's knife, and it's got a bunch of like bad honing marks or scratches in it, a 220 works really well. So that's the red on both of these, or even the big one. Now the big ones will give you a nice even scratch pattern, and the little ones are good for getting in there and we're really working on like an individual scratch, or if it's a much thinner knife like this buck knife here. And so I wish I had started this video when I first started this, because this already looks, this Winchester hunting knife here already looks a lot better than it did. But I'm just gonna keep working it and show you guys what this can do. So I'm just starting to work on this side. So let's see. So you guys can probably see, you can see some of these. There's some pretty deep scratches up here and some scratches down here. And you work this just like you would wood. You want to kind of go with the scratch pattern. The other cool thing with these discs is you can use them with water. So sometimes you can use them with cleaning products. So this is just a water sprayer. Sometimes I'll use a little Lysol surface cleaner. And so this one right here, this is a 400. So the purple's 400. I'm just going to get in here and just start touching up some of this. And I'm running this at about 1500 RPMs. And you can see, you know, you just want to go right there along with that original scratch pattern that's in the knife. And it will polish up and do just a really beautiful job quickly, relatively quickly. I don't want to say super fast because these do take some time. So you do got to put a little work in. And if it's a really deep scratch, you're going to have to go through the progression. So if it's real deep, you may not be able to get it out like with a 400. This one's actually doing a pretty nice job right now of taking most of these scratches out at 400. So I wouldn't have to go a whole lot lower than that. And just be conscious of your scratch pattern. So up here, you know, this knife has a straight scratch pattern that goes this way. And I'm just going right along with that pattern. And, you know, even if you don't take them completely out, if you take the majority of it out, you know, if it's just something you're doing for your customer to make it look nicer and make the knife look like it's new again, they're going to really appreciate it. They'll know, trust me, they will know the minute they see it that the knife looks a lot better if they knew what it looked like when they dropped it off to you. And it does a really good job of removing bad hone marks. And can you guys see that? So hopefully you can see that, how much better that looks already. So there's some deep scratch marks up here I'm going to work a little harder on. But even the main part of the blade just already is polished and just looks 100% better. And this one, I see some parts here that need a little bit more. And it doesn't hurt, guys, also sometimes to go in reverse. So you don't want to put a bigger mark into the knife that's not necessary. So sometimes it's better to start with a higher grit and work your way down if you need to, if you don't know what it's going to do to the particular knife. Now, like I said, I know with like Henckels and Wusthoffs and their typical scratch pattern, I can usually do a 220 or definitely a 400 without much problem. Unless if the knife's heavily oxidized, it'll probably remove some of that oxidation. And so you might see that. It's not actually scratching it, but a lot of times it's just oxidation coming off. So now I'm going to show you, this is just a little cleaning fluid. That's a little Lysol surface cleaner. And now I grabbed a 220 because this area up here is a little deeper, and there's a little deeper scratch up here on the tip. So let's get in here with the 220 and see what this does. And I can see already that's starting to take those marks out, or at least making them a lot less visible. And you just got to be careful to make sure you hit the whole knife. Don't be careful when you get near the edge. You don't want to, like this knife has been sharpened. I usually do this cosmetic stuff first. Unfortunately, this time I didn't do it first, so I am being very conscious of my edge. And I can see already that's looking really good. And now I'm going to hit this area down here that really needed it. It had a couple big scratches down here. And I'm not, my goal is not to get every one of them out. I mean, the customer's not paying me. I do have customers that pay me to refurbish old knives. And, you know, if I'm doing a refurbishing job, then I'm doing a lot of this and putting time in. And for that, I charge $25 an hour when I'm refurbishing knives. You know, if it's a knife I know is going to take a lot of work, if it's not just a simple sharpening and cleanup job, I charge $25 an hour for anything that's not, you know, a sharpening, normal job that comes in the shop. If it's a, you know, new bevels, or I do a lot of old knives. Right now I'm refurbishing a pen knife for a customer, and I just got a new, not a new, but a new piece in, but a Cattaraugus 225Q. It'll be the second one I redo this year that I'm doing for somebody. Now I'm not going to hit this area back here. I want to hit that with a little finer grit, but I think you guys can probably see what a nice job that's doing at restoring that scratch pattern and taking this out. Now, one thing you do want to be careful around any logos. This knife's a Winchester. You can, if you're not careful, especially if the customer doesn't want to take it out, be careful around any logos, because you can sometimes remove them. And you know, unless the customer wants it removed, I usually tend to avoid the logos, or work very, very carefully around it or in that area. And hopefully you can see this well, but it's really amazing. And once I started working with these dental abrasives, or what they call radial disc abrasives, I just loved them, and I think they're worth every penny. I think they're worth the little bit of extra money. Like I said, they last a really long time. I'll show you what I used to use before this. Before, I used to use these little Scotch Brite discs. These things. And what I don't like about these is they make a ton of dust. They fall apart as you use them, so you go through a lot of them. I do still use them a lot of times when I'm cleaning up gear, land gardening gear, landscape gear. I do pruners and hedgers a lot, and I'll still use those Scotch Brites because I have a lot of them. But I could be using these radial discs even for stuff like that. They will remove rust, and they just really do a beautiful job of polishing up a knife. Because, you know, keep in mind, their intention a lot of times is to polish things like jewelry. These are jewelers use these a lot. They have lots of uses, and also the dental, like I said, the dental industry are used. And that was the first time I saw these. That's how I found these things. I actually had a dental implant done, and I had to go get fitted, and my dentist didn't like the color of the implant they sent, so they sent me to get a custom color match done. And the place that was actually making and polishing my implant tooth had these on all of their radial tools, and I was watching them use these to polish up the teeth, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I asked them about them, and you know, they told me what they were, and I thought, wow, I'm gonna see if I can get a set of those and use them for knives and see how they work out. And they work really great. So hopefully you can hopefully you guys saw that. Let me rinse this off and clean all that off of that knife, and give you a good look at it. Now, I usually, when I'm done with this, still polish the knife up. I like to use Flitz. I've talked about that before. But can you guys see that? I mean, it looks 100% better than it did when it came in here. It is nice and shiny. And then when I hit it with Flitz and polish it again on my polisher, it's going to be really beautiful. In fact, I'll just even show you that too, because it's right next to me. So I'll show you what I do there. Now, when I use Flitz, I will sometimes use these little these are little cloth polishers, and I also use, again, something from the jewelry industry. This is a jewelry polisher, and I'll back that up a bit, but let me just show you. The Flitz is great. I think I've mentioned this before. If I haven't, it's an awesome product. It's great. You can use it on plastic, fiberglass, any kind of handle. It will not stain it. You can use it on your car. It's food safe, so it's safe for any knives. If you use it on a kitchen knife, I use it on lots and lots and lots and lots of knives. And the finish and protection it puts on there, they say lasts for about 6 months. And you just put it on like this. Sometimes I use my finger, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I use a little rag. Just be careful. This is a sharp knife. So I'll put it on. And then a lot of times I'll use a rotary tool to really get it going. Just to get in there. And again, this is something you want to polish with the grain. And it will turn black. That's normal. And as it dries, and then eventually it will just completely buff off and leave a absolutely beautiful finish. You can get it on plastic. I've gotten it on wood. It's very, very safe. It's safe for painted things. The only thing I've ever had anyone say I had another customer who loves Flitz and uses it too. He said he used it on a gun that had like a blued finish, and he had to be very careful with it on that it actually started to remove the finishing. Now I haven't had it do that on a knife, and I get knives that have interesting finishes on them. I'm always very gentle with it. I don't use it for a long period of time. I believe the specs on it say I can't remember if it's 8,000 or 10,000 grit. I think it's 10,000. I think it's a little higher than the Tormek paste. I think Tormek paste is, if I remember correctly, is 8,000. And I think Flint's polish is technically, even though they say it's non-abrasive, it technically, their data sheet, I'm pretty sure, if I remember looking at it, said that it was 10,000 grit. So you can see there. So that's pretty much done. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to wipe the excess off so I don't get a ton of it on my buff. So I'm just wiping it off on the rag. And it dries real fast, so it's already starting to dry to a haze. And now what I'm going to do is just right here on my buffer, buff this out for you guys and then dry it. So let me show you that. So this is I got a slightly rougher wheel on this side, and then this is a pretty fine buff over on this side. And we'll turn that on. Remember, buffing safe is from about here down. You never want to hit the other side. And if you're using a knife, you want to keep the knife edge down. This is a jewelry buffer, so I find it to be a lot safer, and its variable speed goes, I think this is around 1700 if I remember correctly, and then it goes all the way up to 8,000, which is really fast. I don't use it that high. No need. I use it at almost its lowest setting all the time. But I really like it. I feel a lot safer with this than my big buffer. I do have a big buffer that I will use for knives. It's on the other side of the shop. It runs at about 3,500 RPMs. It's not variable speed, and that's one reason why I don't like it. And it will grab a piece if you're not careful. I actually always wear leather gloves when I'm buffing with that thing. I wear a face shield when I'm buffing with it. And I try to be really, really careful with that when I'm using that. Just because if there's an item in the shop that's gonna hurt you, it's the buffer. Yeah, not this little one. Like I said, I'm not super concerned about the little one, and that's why I like it. I will even, like I said, this is kind of a no-no going this direction, but I'm not really close to the edge of the blade there at all. So I can hit this top part like that. But you do want to be careful when buffing, always. And that is looking pretty good. And that's what Flint's polish will do for you. Make sure I didn't hit that edge any. And Then I come back and give it a final wipe down with the towel and hand polish it a little bit, and I'm done. This knife is ready to go back to its customer. And you know, is this a complete refurbish? No, but you know, it looks just much better than when it came in. The majority of the scratches that were in there were gone. And you know, could I get them out? I could, yeah. I would have to spend more time on it. But like I said, this isn't even something I'm charging for. This is something that I do for most of my customers. I usually polish and clean up just about everything that they bring in, so when they get it back, they're usually blown away with the condition of their knives, looking like they're brand new. And so that's something you can do if you want. It's something you could either, if you're a knife sharpener like me, you could charge for, or you can just include it to just impress your customers. All right, guys, have a great day. And that's how I use radial abrasive discs. I will leave a link in the video to all the different ones that I use. I use Dremel tools. I have little... Okay, so here's some more before and afters of the buck knife you saw. I do want to say that I love the Flitz products. I really like the paste, so I'm going to put some links in there for you guys for that. I also love their matte finish for knives that you don't want shiny. Really great stuff. Every product I've ever got from Flitz, I've always been very, very happy with. I also like their wax for knife handles and wood handles for firearms or knives.